So you can go in and open some of the files that we have, and we're going to take a look at creating some shapes. We're going to take a look at using the pen, the pencil tool. We're going to look at the eraser tool. We're going to look at something called the curvature tool as well. And then we create some symbols at the end. If you think it's too hard because you never used Illustrator, just be patient and look at it, and then you get the idea at the end. So this is Illustrator when you open it. Just had a discussion before. Not all of you look at Illustrator and it looks like that, right? Because it's a different kind of license. And this is kind of like the work and everything that you have, and this is have something learn. But if I want to open something, you can do File and Open. And then I prepared for you guys some files, and this is what you have over here. Just files. If you downloaded them, it's one says festival, one says handout, and in the handout basically what I did, I put for you, it says Illustrator CC 2015, but it's the same, but we have everything about transformation and everything if you want to go, and also you have the crazy looking Illustrator panel. And that's the first thing we're going to look at because there's so many tools over here. Then we are going to go in and open some templates to work with the pen tool and maybe draw something with it. Then we're going to go in and image trace something. So I prepared for you already images to do that. And if we have time, we are going to go in and create something from this folder festival and really go in and trace stuff. I also prepared here a template for sketching and thumbnail, because if you're gonna need to do the icons, you might draw the icons first and these little thumbnails, and then from that you're gonna go in and start drawing some other stuff, and that's why I put this stuff over here. So the first thing we are going to do is we're gonna do File and New. Okay, be like this. You do File and New, and you can see here this is the new document dialog box. Is everybody has this File New like that? And then you can see here these are the recent files. That means these are files that I played with before. This is stuff that I saved, and these are some intent to open. So you can do stuff for mobile, you can do stuff for the web, you can do stuff for print, film and video, and art and illustration. We're just gonna go in and do for print. Do you see the word print? And then we're just gonna go into the letter, and this is the letter size. That's it. We're not gonna worry about other sizes at the moment. And we're gonna go and click Create. And this is what I have right now. And all the way to the right size, I want all of you to go to the Layout workspace. Do you see that? This is what they call a workspace in Illustrator and also in Photoshop, if you know, and also in Design. And then I'm using the layout because over here you have a lot of the stuff that we need. And the reason I'm showing you that, it's for the people who never used Illustrator before. They need to know where the panels are. If you happen to be on another panel, you can always go in and change your layout to different kind of layout. If you mess up your layout, you can either reset the layout and it goes back to default, or go to Window, and these are all the panels over here. So in Illustrator, it's not as organized in little folder like in InDesign. It's alphabetically ordered from action all the way to the variables. One by one, these are basically the panels. The one that makes people like, it's kind of a little harder because look at the toolbox. You think it is kind of like an easygoing toolbox, but there's a lot of stuff in there. There's so many tools in Illustrator. What we are going to use today, we're going to use some transformation tools, we're going to use some shape tools, and we're going to use the pen tool to go in and draw some stuff. But basically what you have here, do you see all the way up? And this is for people that never used Illustrator before. Do you see the dark arrow? This is your selection tool that you select object. The light arrow has a direct selection tool there and a group selection tool inside. And in Illustrator, because you can do so much stuff, you can click here and actually snap it out. So have it next to you to know what's going on. And I like that. I wish I could have it in other option like in Photoshop so you can see it in front of you. You have a magic wand, you have a selection magic wand, but we're going to look at the pen tool. And look what we have here in the pen tool. We have a regular pen tool, we have an add anchor point, delete anchor point, and convert anchor point. We're going to look today at the pen tool, and then we're going to look also at the curvature tool, which is another tool that you can create objects and then go in and draw around it. And one of the things that it's easier in Illustrator is you basically can always have a reference. So what does it mean? Let's say tomorrow somebody tells you, I want to have a vector drawing of a girl jumping, like a silhouette. And you're going to say, well, I don't know how to do that. You can download an image with a girl jumping and basically trace it with the pen tool and get the silhouette in Illustrator. Or image trace it if you need to do a perfect look of that. And these are the things that we're going to do today. The other thing we're going to do today, we're just going to work with simple object. You see here, it says rectangle tool. And over here is the line segment tool and other tools. Basically, these are the tools that we might work with it together to manipulate and work some stuff. Does that make sense?
Can you show how you made the tools stand by themselves?
Oh, by themselves? Yes. I went back here. And by the way, in one of the handouts that I have, I actually stripped the tool, and you can see if you print it, you'll see them. Basically what you have to do, you click and hold on your mouth, hold it, go to this little tab here and spread it. Go back to this one and just bring it out. Go back to this one and bring it out. Go to the pen tool and bring it out. Not all the tools have other tools with it. How would you know? When you have a tiny little arrow next to it inside, that's when you know the tools have roommates. That's how I call them. I call them roommates. So another thing that you need to know here, that everything needed to be selected. What does it mean selected? Let's say, I'm just going to show you. I'm going to go into File and Open, and I'm going to go back, let's say, to my file here. And you can see here it says Live Paint. You can click on it also and double click and open that. And I'm just going to open a file. This is an Illustrator file that you have in front of you. And basically, you can go in and work with it. But what does it mean selected? If I want to do anything, let's say, to this flower, and I am going to my layers panel, which I have layers as well over here, it's not good enough for me to do stuff like that. You see? What I just did, I just clicked on the layer panel. This is Photoshop. It's just selecting a layer and looking at it. It's Photoshop. In Illustrator, when you expand this layer, you can see I have more stuff in there. Do you see what's going on there? There's more path in there. So one of the things to pay attention to is the layers are really for organization. When you need to do something, you really need to select the object with the selection tool, and then you'll be able to do something to it. In general, you can see here, like this, let's say this file, can never be one object. Everything that has more than one color in Illustrator is basically more than one object. Always. It can never be a file. You see, if I select that, you see, this is one object, and this is one object, and this is one. Depending what I have in there, could be bunch. If I'm gonna select it all together and select and give it another color, everything is going to be changed. Does that make sense? So I'm going to my Untitled file. And then I'm gonna drag out the layers panel just to see. So those of you who never used Illustrator before, I'm gonna go back here. The layers panel in this workspace is all the way down. Do you see that? It's basically all the way down at the end of your workspace. So I'm gonna click on the word layer and just bring it out to see what's going on. One of the things to understand in Illustrator before you start, how does it look to you now? What color is it? I opened it, file new, right? It's now white. It's never gonna be white in the beginning. If you all go to view and show transparency grid, this is what it is by default. You just do not see the transparency grid. Can never be a situation that you open something, you're always gonna have layer 1. You cannot choose the color of layer 1 because it's always transparent, so it's different than Photoshop. But if I wanted, and I'm gonna go high transparent, if I wanted this image to start on a white background, guess what I have to do? I have to do a rectangle with the size of this file and fill it with white. If I want it to be red, I have to do a rectangle with the size of the file and color it red, or I can even play stuff from Photoshop and put it in there. We have a new panel. Everybody has Illustrator CC 2018 here?
I have the old one, but
which one? 217?
Let's see. 2011. No. Yeah.
Okay.
But I'll just follow along.
Okay. So if you go to Window and go in and bring your Properties panel and just bring it out. And I love this new panel because this shows you how to start working with Illustrator and makes life a little easier before you start looking for so many panels. Let's say you don't want to start looking for all the panels. So when there's nothing on the screen, look what it tells you. The document unit is in point. So let's say we're going to make it in inches. Then I can edit the artboards and the size of the file from here. I can go in and show rulers directly from here. I can show the grid, and I can show the transparency right away from here. So it's a lot easier. Then you can have guides, you can lock the guides, and you can go and hide the smart guides. And you can also snap to options and all the stuff over here. And then when you start working with something, you're going to see new things in the properties. And then if you want to do something more advanced, you're going to go in and look at the panel itself. Does that make sense? So that's the new edition in 2018. So if you don't have 2018, you don't have the properties panel. So that's why I showed you, if I go to view and show transparency grid, I have it here. So the first few things we're going to do, we're just going to look at working with the pen tool. Very simple. I want you to go to the letter N and click on the screen. That will take you to the pencil tool. No idea why the shortcut is N, but maybe they ran out of other shortcuts because pencil does not remind me anything about N, right? You want to say P for pencil, but the pen tool is P. So they cannot do. So this is the pencil tool. And inside you have also something called shaper tool, smooth tool, path eraser, and join tool. We're going to start with the pencil tool. Double click on it first. And what you have here is the option. So you're basically thinking, before you start drawing, you're telling it how to behave. The way I do it, I always reset first to make sure it resets to the original. And then you're going to tell it what to do. You see, it says the fidelity. What does it mean? All the way to the left, whatever we're going to draw, it's going to be accurate the way you draw. We're going to play with few things. All the way back to smooth, it's going to be smoother. And somewhere in the middle, it's going to be like in between. Let's first do the accurate. Another thing is you can ask it to be selected. You can ask to fill it with stroke if you want. You can close the path within a certain pixel, and you can edit them with from anything from 0 pixels to 20. So I'm going to put it to 20 and I'm going to click OK. What I have right now is, by default, if you're looking all the way down, you see a black stroke and the fill is white. I see it also all the way up in my control. This is the stroke and this is the fill. I want to go to the fill and click on the little square that says none. Because at the moment I do not want to fill it with color. When I draw in the beginning, I don't like to fill it because I want to see what I'm drawing. Then I'll fill it. Let's change it to a more fun stroke, let's say red. And over here it tells you what is the size of the stroke. It can be anything from 0.25 to 100 to any number that you're going to put in. Let's just do in between. Let's just do 2. And I'm about to do something. So all what you need to do is just go in and draw something. I just drew something. Look how many anchor points I have there. Pretty much not, maybe I don't want so many. I'm going to double click on the pencil again, and this time I'm going to go to smooth and try to imitate more or less the same, and look what happened now. It's smoothing my path, but it's not as accurate to the way I drew. I want you to try it. Does that make sense? So you can decide how do you want to do it. If I don't want anything right now, I can go to select all. It will select everything and simply delete it. And by the way, with Illustrator, unlimited amount of undos. So Command Z, Control Z, Command Z, Control Z. No history panel. You select it, you delete it. So don't fight with them, because you can delete them and do new ones. So I'm going to double click and I'm going to put it in between. And then now I'm going to draw something. So I'm going to draw something like maybe a cloud. So you see here, when I close it, I see a little circle. And this path is closed right now. Now if I wanted to fill it with anything, I can go all the way up to my control, click inside and say I want to fill it with, let's say, cyan, and I want to go to the stroke and I do none. If I want to move it, I'm not going to move it with the pencil tool, I'm going to move it with the selection tool. Does that make sense? I'm moving it. And then I'm going to deselect and select again, and you see I do have my cloud over here, and I'm going to move it around. If I want to go in and adjust it, I'm going to go to the direct selection tool and just click on the path, and now look what you have. Do you see a bunch of anchor points? Do you see that? And that's the time that you can click on each anchor point, and if you feel like pushing it in and out, you can start changing the stuff. Or you can go to another tool, which going to be with the pencil tool. Let's have a smooth tool. And look what I'm doing now. I'm going over it. And tell me what you see. What's going on now? I'm changing a little bit the look of my cloud, but while smoothing it, I'm adding an anchor point. Does that make sense? And then I'm going to zoom out a little bit. So you can always go to View, Zoom in, Zoom out, which is Command or Control plus, or Command or Control minus, and go back here. So just play with it. Let's just play with it again. This time we're going to do something else. We're going to start drawing something. And now I'm going to change the color to, let's say, purple stroke. And look at that. I started. I want to continue it. If I go to the edge of the area, I want you to look at the symbol. What do you see below my pen? Do you see a little slash? It's very difficult to see it. You click, and basically if you continue, you basically adding to the area. I see I continued, and I continue, and I can continue it again and again, but this one is a path that so far is not closed. Does that make sense? Can I fill a path that it's not closed in Illustrator? Yes, you can. You can go all the way up here and fill it with that. It didn't fill it the way I wanted, but it filled it, right? And I'm going to go back here and do that. If I want to continue, I'm going to go back to the pencil. And if I want to close it, I go to where I started, and I'm looking to the tiny little symbol with the little circle. Now it is a closed path. Now if I fill it, you can see it looks different. Does that make sense? I did that with the pencil. It will look like when you do it with the pen tool as well, it doesn't really matter. You can go in and do anything you want with it just with the pencil. So let's delete that for a minute and do File and Place. And then you go back to your drawing tools, and inside the image trace there is a bunch of symbols. Let's say I'm going to go into the simple symbol, paintbrush, just simple, and I'm going to say place, and I'm just going to click one time on the screen. That's it. I placed a Photoshop file on the screen. Bless you. Let's say, and I'm going to show you how to trace it in other ways too, but let's say for your project you need to have something that looks like an artist panel and palette, and you don't know how to do it exactly, so you went online, took some references. I took one that I don't even own, right? You can do as many as you want, and you say I want to make an icon from it. There's a bunch of ways to make an icon from it. One way is to just image trace it. Another way is basically go in and trace it with the pencil tool, and another way later on we can do another symbol with the pen tool or the curvature tool. So, and then what is it going to do? If you image trace it, it can mimic exactly the symbol. If you do it with the pencil tool, you basically trace it. So I want you to go into your layers panel and basically click and select the whole thing in the layers panel. Just click and select it. And then all the way, you see these little lines at the edge of the layers panel? I call that a flyout menu. Click inside and say template. And look what happens. It is locked and it became 50% lighter, so you can start maybe tracing it. Now I want you to say new layer, and you can call the new layer, let's say trace or vector trace. But basically we're going to play for a minute with the pencil tool and see. So you're going to need to do that with sections, because you cannot do some and then later on maybe you can do these little blotches if you need to, right? So the first thing I would do is I would go and say I don't want to see any fill, and I'm going to say I'm going to choose a stroke, and maybe I'm going to choose, let's say, a green stroke for now. Why? Because this is black, and then I want to see whatever, and I'm going to zoom in, Command plus or Control plus. Do you see it already pixelated? Because it's not a good file, but I want to make it sharp and good. So I can go to the pencil tool, double click on it, make sure I'm resetting it. I don't want to edit the selected path, but I want to go and keep selecting it. And basically what you're going to do now, Start going around it, and you don't have to be perfect. And look what I'm doing. I'm starting. And then I'm going to go in and continue that. And I'm not doing a good job. But I'm going until it closes. Once, and let me know if you were able to close that. If you're not able to close it, go to Select All, go to Object, Path, and Join. And basically what it does, it joins all the areas that you have there. Now you see, on purpose, I didn't do a good job. Not on purpose, because I couldn't do it. I don't like to work a lot with the pencil tool. I'm going inside the pencil tool, and I'm going to go to the Smooth tool. And I'm going to go while it's selected, and look what I'm doing. You see what I'm doing to it? I'm smoothing it until more or less I'm going to get the look that I want. Another thing is to pay attention to, it doesn't have to be perfect. Why not? Who said that the drawing that we saw is a perfect artist panel, right, or palette? It could be a different look to it. I have a bunch of them and it looks a little different. So now I'm going to test it. I'm going to go to the fill and I'm going to fill it with red, and I'm seeing, not bad. It looks like the overall area there. Does that make sense? And I'm going to go back and just work with the stroke for now. The other thing, so now I'm going to go to the layers panel, and look what happened in the layers panel. I have one path. I don't want this path to move. So I'm not locking the entire layer. I'm locking just the path temporarily. Does that make sense? So this is not going to move, and now I might go in and look at this area. What does this look like? Maybe a circle. So I don't need to work so hard. I can go to my ellipse tool, and I can click and drag kind of an ellipse. Not perfect. Now while I have it, I can go into the direct selection tool, select again just the path, and look what I'm doing. I'm going to go to the object itself, and I'm going to move a little bit the little anchor point that it looks kind of more or less like the ellipse that is in the drawing. So basically your direct selection tool, and I'm going to do it again, is the one that modifies everything. I'm going to do an ellipse. I'm going to go to the direct selection tool, deselect one time, select just the path, and start moving. Does that make sense? And the way you move these little handles, you make that more curvy or less curvy. So let's say I like that. All good for now. And I'm going to deselect. And I'm going to go in and lock this one. So what else I have here? The way it works with Illustrator, if later on you wanted it to be with different colors, you're going to need to do different sections. So I might go to the pencil tool, and I might just go into the brush. That's it. And that's going to be, and I might go into the smooth tool and smooth it a little bit, that you can see it looks like a brush tip. Once again, I'm locking. Why am I locking stuff that I don't use anymore for now? Because in Illustrator, if you don't lock it, it moves. And your pencil tool is going to want to catch it. And I'm going to zoom in. And now I want to maybe do this one. This one I might do another trick to it. I might go to my round rectangle tool and click, or not the round, the regular rectangle tool, and click and drag a rectangle. I'm going to go to the regular selection tool, go outside of it and rotate it a little bit and kind of move it. And then maybe make it a little smaller and a little smaller here. So I'm going to move it around until I get some kind of shape that I want to work with. If I zoom into it, I want you to see what you have. Do you see these little corners here? I can go into this kind of corners and I basically can click on the corner and move it. You see these tiny little corners? I'm going to zoom into it again, and then I'm going to go in and move the corners inside a little bit, or I can go in here and then see here, it won't let me do that because it wants kind of like, it thinks that I want to rotate it because it's a very small area. So I might zoom into it a little bit and go into these corners, and still doesn't let me do that for some reason. And I'm just going to go to each corner and move it around. But I want to do something else with it. I want to go to another tool. And the other tool is inside the scale tool. Do you see I have a scale, I have shear, and I have a reshape. Do you see that? If you click on the letter S, you have that. And then you have something even nicer, which is new. You have something called Puppet Warp. You don't have it if you don't have the new one. And you have something that says Free Transform. You have this one. The Free Transform is letting you go in and gives you something like that. And I can go in and click and drag and start changing it to a different look. Do you see that? And then I can go in and make it even smaller and smaller and go back here to this area, and I can go back here and kind of adjust the area that I have. And if I zoom out a little bit, I can see that I have maybe this look of this area. I'm saying maybe because you can do a different shape. And I might lock that. And all what I need to do now is basically go with the pencil tool and try to go in and just trace this area. So you can go in 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, and then 1, 1, 1 here, and close it. Didn't do a good job at all, because other tools may be going to do a better job. But I'm going to smooth it a little bit, as much as I can. See, I'm smoothing and smoothing, and if I want to push it with, yes.
So sorry. For the actual paintbrush part, what did you use again?
Which one? This here?
The actual brush.
Oh, the brush, just the pencil tool for now. But now I can also go to the direct selection tool, select any of the points and kind of like reshape it and push it in. So these little anchor points, I can play with them. And I can reshape everything that I want. Now let's say I have all the elements, not the greatest elements, but I have that. The first thing I want to do is unlock everything. I'm going to select with the regular selection tool the outside. What is this here? How does it look to you? In the properties panel, you can see that if you go into view and show transparency, this area has to be punched out because it is transparent, because that's where the artist is holding, right? The hand. So how would I punch out? I'm going to hold on the shift key and select the other shape inside. So I'm selecting the two of them. I'm selecting the outside and the inside. Both of them are selected in my layers panel or on the screen itself. Once I'm selecting the two of them, I can go to Object, Compound, and Make. And look what happened in my layers panel. What is a compound in Illustrator? One object. Now if I go in and fill it with the color, look what I just did. I punched it and it has the holding thing for it. I don't want to have it green. Maybe I want to go in for now. I still want to have that, but it's one object. Now I can just select the regular brush and maybe fill that, let's say, with blue. And maybe select this one and fill that with yellow, and then fill this one and fill that with another kind of yellow. So I have kind of like, or maybe not even yellow, maybe even red. So that's kind of like your brush. Once I'm selecting these three, or just the two, the handle and the brush itself, if I don't want to have any stroke, I can take away the stroke. If I want to have a stroke, I can change the size of the stroke, let's say for 1 point, and maybe make it black. Maybe I'm going to make it 2. And then maybe I'm going to go to this one and I'm going to make it 3, and I'm going to make it black. This one was actually turquoise and this one was black. So, and now I want to see if I did a good job. Not perfect, but I'm going to turn off and look what I start having. Okay, the brush doesn't look so great because I did it with the pen tool, but this one is not looking so bad. So I might go in and change the stroke maybe to like 4 points and maybe have it also black. And maybe I want to change the fill to light orange. Start looking like the stuff that I just did, right? Almost. And we don't have the colors around it. But what doesn't look so good? Maybe the stroke is boring. Because it's one size, right? If you click on here, you see it's size point and it's all over kind of like that. So there is another tool that will help you smooth your strokes or make them look more interesting. You don't even need to select anything. I want you to go to your width tool. If you click on the letter Shift W, and by the way, I have it in the PDF, so if you go over it, you'll see that. This is the smooth tool, and I'm zooming in. I didn't select anything. As soon as I'm on it, look what happened. Do you see tiny little anchors? Do you see that? You click and you can either stretch it or make it smaller. You see that? Just play with it for a minute. So I'm going to make this area here a lot thinner. I'm going to go to this area and I'm going to make it a little wider. Do you see already that I got a more interesting stroke? It basically gives it more like a personality, right? It's not one. What if you said, I want it to be only to one side? I can go in here and while I click, I hold on the Option or Alt click, and you see that it does only to one side. What if you don't know what you're doing and somebody tells you numbers? You can always double click on the little points and it's going to tell you what width option you get. I never do that because point doesn't mean a thing to me when I'm drawing. But if a client says something, this is what I want you to do, of course you can go with numbers. But look what other interesting thing happened. Because it's one object and it is a compound, you see what happens here? Also this one changed. Do you see that? So if I go to this one and do that, it will change also here. Do you see that? Because it's one object. What if you said, this is really looking cool. I want to go in and maybe put this little look to the crooked brush that I just made and this crooked thing here. Go in and select it with the regular selection tool. Do you see all the way up on your control, there's an area here. There's a stroke size, and here is called variable width profile. Do you see that? If you click inside and click on the save symbol, it's going to ask you to give it a name, but basically you can save your profiles. I can click OK. What if I wanted to put on it another profile? There's some profiles that were there before. So I can go in and put this profile or that profile. Do you see that? Or this profile. Or the last one I just did. The profile doesn't take the sides of your stroke. It takes the areas that you pushed. So if I want to go to the profile and select this little brush, you see it says none. All the way down, I can apply the new profile and look at it on the brush. Do you see that? I can select on this one, also to hold on the shift key. I can select it together and look at that. Now it looks a little different. Does that make sense? So the width is going to go in and help you creating different profiles. So everything that you did with the pencil tool and everything that has a stroke, with brushes, it doesn't really work all the way. Does that make sense? Now all what I want you to do is click on the collapse the layer, click on it to select it and move it all the way up here. Just move it. Now I can go in and make it bigger or smaller, change colors, do anything that I want, because it's completely vector. If I needed to do the blotches off, the little paint, it's fine. I'm gonna skip it right now. Does that make sense? The next thing, we're gonna take the same thing and we do image trace, and I'm gonna show you the difference. Does that make sense? How are we doing so far with the pencil tool? You good? So basically you can trace anything that you want and start making it happen. I'm gonna lock the trace and I'm gonna bring back this little guy. Now I don't want it to be anymore a template. So I'm gonna go in here and say untemplate, and look what happened. I still have my cloud there. I don't need the cloud. But you see here, this is just the regular image from before. I can go in, and if the client wants it exactly like this and just want it vector, I can use something called image trace. Where is it? It's going to be in few places in Illustrator. One place is all the way up in your control. You see when I placed it, it was a linked file because that's how I placed it. It tells you what it is. It tells you the pixel per inch. It's a very tiny one. If you need a bigger one, you can actually make this one bigger because it's going to look awful. It tells you that you can embed it, make it part of Illustrator. You can go edit the original. It's going to open it in Photoshop, and you see the word image trace. Let me know if you see that. You guys see it over there? Girls? Good. Click on image trace one time. Believe it or not, it's vector. And it's vector and it's black and white right now, but not perfect, right? I'm going to zoom into it. Zoom in. Look at this. Do you see the quality? It's already vector. I don't want that like this. I want it to be exactly the colors. So after I went in and image traced it one time, I can go all the way up. There is presets. Do you see that? And I can go in this different presets. Also, I can go in image trace panel and click to open it. If you don't go from here, you can always bring the image trace panel from the window menu bar, and believe it or not, you do have a tracing workspace. Not that you need it. I never use that because it's just with the image trace. But look what I have in the image trace panel. I have the presets again. Let's click inside and do high fidelity photo. Do you see that? It's already traced it and it's mimicking almost the 100% look of the photo. And then I'm going to go in and change the color to the top to 100 color, and it's going to do a little bit more. If it was 300 ppi, it will be a better trace. The higher resolution it is, the better trace it's going to be. Does that make sense? Once I have that, I want you to go in and click on the advance. And over here you can go and play with the tracing. You can change the path, so it's gonna go and retrace it. You can change the corner. You can change the noise if you want, so it's gonna change that a little bit. So everything that you change here, it's going to change something in your image. I still can go back and forth and I can look at the tracing result. Tracing result with outline. That's how we traced it. Tracing result, just the outline. You see all these little guys here? These are anchor points. That's how it traces it. Instead of tracing it as one flat area, it will trace it with little guys there.
How did you do that?
I went all the way here on the view and it will say the tracing results. Outline with image source and the image source itself. Do you see that under the view? And you can find it also over here. Let's say I don't want so many colors. I can go into the preset and I say I want to do shades of gray. Maybe that's gonna look cool. Look at this one. Looks a lot better because it doesn't have, and it has, look, it's a little softer. And I can go to more grays and do 100 grays. The more colors I have, it's gonna start being a little jaggier over here. And I can go and play with the area that I have. And you can also save your presets again and again and again. And while you have that, you see all the way down here it says curves, snap curves to line. So it's snap it to the line, but you see it says ignore white, and right now it's grayed out. So what it means that it's actually tracing the white area around it right now. So if I go to view and show transparency grid, look how I traced it. So that would be perfect if I want to enlarge it and put it on a white background. But what if I want to enlarge it and put it on a red background? Not a good thing, right? So I'm going to play with other stuff. I'm going to go in, instead of grayscale, I'm going to go color. And in this case, I'm going to go in and do that, maybe low fidelity color. And then 16 color. Oh, and then in 16 color, it lets me ignore white. So look what happened when I did ignore white. Do you see that? It took away the white area that I have, and it just traced the image for me. Does that make sense? Now you're going to ask me a question. If I want to use it as is, I can make it as big as it gets. You see that? And look at this. Now it's looking as big as it gets, and I can start playing with it. If you want to change colors, you have to expand it. What does it mean? At the moment, the machine doesn't see anchor points. It just did it for you. If you want to change color, you go all the way up to the expand, and it tells you converting tracing objects into path. Do you see that? All the way up. And everybody sees that? If you don't see it, I can show it to you. Click. Look what happens now. If you open that, look what happens now. These are all the objects that you have now. Now basically I can go in and select one area with the direct selection tool, and that's going to be the field. I'm going to select this area, you see that? And I might go in and change it to red. You see that? I'm starting changing my artist panel. Does that make sense? So that's another way of start drawing stuff. This one, this is a simple one. This one doesn't work for everything because sometimes you have to really trace it by hand. And we're gonna do more image trace in a minute just to go in and play with the stuff. So the next thing, we're gonna look at the pen tool and the curvature tool. And after you see the pen tool, you might say, I'm not crazy about it. You see the curvature tool and you're gonna fall in love, because that's gonna make your life a lot easier in drawing. And by the way, if you're working on Photoshop now, Photoshop 2018 have a curvature tool as well. So I'm going first to do file. Yes?
How did you
Just selected this?
yeah.
I went to the direct selection tool, deselected everything and just selected the inside. See, it's just, that's what it is. See how it traced it? See, that's how it traces it. So I have a hole in this guy. This one I can move it. This one, it traces it and then created a hole here for the brush. You see the difference? And then if I select this guy and then gonna move it, it's just gonna go, this is the inside, this is the outside, this is the inside. These are the little paint blotches that you have there. So with the direct selection tool, you can select an object within a whole group and also go to the anchor point and change that. Does that make sense? Now I want to show you a little bit the pen tool and then the curvature tool, and then we're gonna go and trace something with it and then do the image trace again and then play with the stuff that you have. So I want you to say file and open, and inside the files that I gave you it says pen tool. Do you see that? Double click on it and then you have different kind of templates over here. Let's first go in and go into the straight line template. Just straight line. Double click on it and open it. Basically this is what you have there. I don't need the tracing and it will tell you already what you have there. So we want to create something that looks maybe like that. So we are going to go, you see this, the template is all the way down. We're gonna go in and look at drawing the lines. So you see the first number one is the pen tool. So we're gonna select the pen tool. I'm gonna take the layers panel and bring it here. I'm gonna make it a little, gonna have more space here. And then I'm gonna go to my pen tool, the regular pen tool. Before you start working with the pen tool, it's really recommended, and I have it in the PDF, to look at the symbols that you're gonna have. The pen tool has tiny little symbols. If you start something, maybe it looks like this. When you see a little flower next to it, that tells you the pen tool is starting something new. If you're gonna see a front slash or an opposite V, it tells you I'm gonna go continue the path that you have. If you're gonna see a little circle, it says I'm gonna close the path. If you're gonna see something like looks like that, a little square and two lines outside, that's connecting two extra paths. And if you're gonna see plus or minus, it tells you I'm taking away anchor points. It tells you it's a language, right? Everything that you wanna edit, you wanna edit it with the direct selection tool, this guy. Because if you select it with the regular selection tool, everything is moving. Does that make sense? So we're gonna go to my pen tool. And look what I'm doing. I'm gonna click on A, one click, and click on B. This is just a straight line. If you do not deselect, it wants to continue. Do you see that? It wants to continue until you tell it where to go. If I click here, or click here, it continues. If I don't want to continue anymore, I have to deselect. You don't deselect with the pen tool. You deselect with any of the selection tool, or hold on the command or control and click on the screen to deselect. You see now it's not selected. And I have the shortcuts over here, right? So now if I wanted to continue something, if I go anywhere else, you see the tiny little flower. But if I go at the edge, look at the symbol. Even if it's not selecting, it thinks you want to continue. I'm not going to continue. I'm going to select one here and click another here and deselect. So I have two of them. Now I'm going to select that. See, it thinks I'm going to continue. And look where I'm going here. That's the square and the two line. Look, because what is it doing? Adding it. Now I'm going to continue that. If I want to close the path, it's only to where I'm starting. And now it is a closed path. Does that make sense? And I'm deselecting. So when you do a straight line, you basically click, 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 click. That's it. So I'm going to go back to here. And let's do this one together. Nothing else is selected. You do a click on A, hold on the shift key to click on B. What is the shift doing? Straight line or 45 degrees. Does that make sense? Now this one is not 45, so I just do a click. Hold on the shift key, click on E, hold on the shift, and see now what's going on. Why is it covering it? Because I didn't even look, but I have a white fill. So I'm going to go into here and go to the side and say none. And click, hold on the shift key, and now I'm closing it. Once you close it, you don't have to worry even to deselect, because you cannot add to it anything anymore. And later on, what we're going to do with it, we are going to go in and fill it maybe with a color. At the moment, no color. Does that make sense?
How did, when it highlights it in white, how did you do that?
When I highlighted in white, I went to my toolbox and I went and while it was doing it, clicked on the none. That's no fill.
My outline is still gone.
But it has to be selected.
Okay.
If nothing is, that's the thing with Illustrator. See, if this is, let's say I want to change it and want to fill it with color. I can go in here and say, oh yeah, let me fill it with red. Do you see anything on the screen? No. Why not? Because I did not select that. If I'm going to select it, it's still not. Now if I'm going to go in, now it's going to do it. That's what you have to pay attention to in Illustrator. You always have to select the object in order to do something. But now let's look at this area. I'm going to zoom in. This one, some of the stuff is done for you already. This little guy is there. I want you to go to the direct selection tool and just click on the path and select it. Do you see it selected? And then go to the pen tool and you see it says a plus, add anchor point. Do you see that? Select that and click on the area that have the X and add an anchor point. Let me know if you did that. In real life, nobody's going to give you templates. You're going to have to draw it yourself. But now look what I'm doing. Going to the direct selection tool. Deselecting first and just selecting this anchor. And moving it, moving it, moving it. And look what happens. See what I did? I got another shape like that. Does that make sense? So basically, when you add anchor points anywhere, you can click with the direct selection tool and make it to a different shape. Does that make sense? And the other one, I mean, all the way down is very simple. I mean, I'm not even going to worry about. This is basically clicking, 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 and creating the area with the Manhattan highlight, right? So if I'm going to zoom into this area here, I can go in and just do click and hold on the shift key and shift and shift. Basically it's all straight line. Does that make sense? And maybe I'm just going to do part of it only. And let's say I don't want to do anymore, I'm deselecting. But what I want you to see is, I'm going to zoom out for a minute, and all what I want to do is select just the inside of the martini here, and just put it on top of that. So now I basically can select the outside and fill it with white.
Sorry, how did you do that again?
They moved it?
Make the, oh, okay, just
I moved it, yeah. Or I'm going to select the inside only and go back here and make the inside, let's say with gray, and make the outside with the white. But now you see it's covering the other one. So all what I need to do is object, go select that, go object, arrange, and send back. And then go back to the other object and make it in front. And now I have a shape. And that's really, really simple. The next one, we're going to look at curves. Because what do you really need to do in real life? It's basically, sometimes it's straight, but a lot of time is curvy stuff. Even the palette that we did. It would be easier if we did a curve to make it happen. So I want you to open File and Open. And inside is Pen Tool Templates. I have a bunch of straight line. We don't need to open that because we did that. But we're going to go in and click on curves. And we're just going to do the first template. And then we're going to look at the pair to create that. And we're going to do it in two ways. And then we're going to place an image and start tracing it to start drawing. So I'm going to go and click Open. And look what you have here. You have a template. I'm going to look at my layers panel. And then I can see the template is all the way down there. And then there is a draw. So this is the templates, right? If I turn it off, it's locked. And it says draw here. Do you see that? This template is the same. But one tells you exactly how much to do it. The other one tells you where to click. And the last one is real life. Doesn't tell you what to do. The first thing we'll do here, go to the pen tool. And then go to the stroke. And let's change the stroke, let's say, to purple. And for the sake of the demo, let's say even 2 points. So we're going to see it. And let's look at the fill and say none. And by the way, all the stuff that you're drawing, guess what can go on it? Type. So if you later on going to do something really fancy, you can put type in any curve that you have. And that's how the people draw with and making all kind of crazy stuff in Illustrator. You probably have seen a lot of images with type inside and all kind of crazy stuff. That's how they create that. I'm going to go into the first one, and maybe you want to watch and see what I'm doing first. I'm going to click on one, and I'm holding down my mouth. I'm holding it down, and then stretching a handle. I can stretch it to any direction. In this case, they want you to stretch it to the red circle. Release. How many points do I have, anchors? Only one. This one you don't click, you just stretch. I'm going to click on 2 and stretch. The longer the handles are, the deeper the curve is. Does that make sense? I'm not even going to care if it's not perfect. I'm going to do it not even perfect. I'm going to click on here and I'm going to do that. Click and drag. Click and drag, and let's say click and drag. Now I want to fix it. That's when I go to the direct selection tool. If I select on it one time, you can see I'm going to click and select that, only this area, and look what I can do. I can go in and fix it. Not using the regular selection tool. Why not? Because look what the regular selection tool does. Does that make sense? The regular selection moves. That's it. That's the job. The direct selection tool is your modifier. So I'm going to select just here, and look what I can do. I can fix my crooked stuff. Select it, and you see, I want it to be lower or upper. I want to select that and change. I'm going to select this one and change. And you can see already, if I had the artist palette now, maybe I could have done a better curve and not worry about the pencil so much. So depending which one you're doing, can I add a point? Yes, you can. While it's still there, see, I can add one here, and one here, and one here, and here, and here. And once again, if I click on that, I can create different kind of things. So you see, from a simple look like this, I can create something that looks a little bit different. Does that make sense?
Can you make the slopes even to one another?
What?
Can you make the slopes even to one another? So if you want the up slopes to all be at the same
Yeah.
width.
Yeah, like here, right? The up, like all the up here, yes, you can even go and bring a guide for yourself and make sure they're exactly. So how would you do that? I'm going to go to View and Ruler and Show Ruler. Let's say I want to have it exactly. You see over here, I'm going to click and drag a ruler. And now I'm going to go in to my stroke, and I'm going to go make the stroke, let's say, this color. And now I'm going to start working. I'm going to click and drag. And you see, this is the guide. I can even go to the guide and lock it so I can see it, and I can go in and drag here, and it's just going to be perfect. And I can go back here, and I can go back here and do that. And more than that, if you really want it to be like really perfect, you can actually later go and select the areas here and select here and move it. You can even snap it to the guide and also go in and select the XY coordinate in your transform panel and really see that it's snapping it. So it can really get really perfect. Or you can do a grid and really put it on there. Does that make sense? Now this one is a perfect curve without telling you what to do. So this one, how would you know what to do? I'm just going to figure it out. Maybe like this. And if it's not perfect, I'm going to fix it. So how am I going to fix it? I'm going to go to my direct selection tool. There's shortcuts for it, but I'm not going to worry you about it right now, because some of you never used Illustrator, but it is in my PDF. But you see what I'm doing? I'm fixing it. And all of a sudden, if I put a guide, it might look perfect. If not, I'm going to go in. So what I'm trying to tell you, when you're doing a curve, you click and drag. What does it mean? Just go and play here. Click and drag. Click and drag. You see what happens? Click and drag. Click and drag. And I call this one an anatomy of a curve. What does it mean? If nothing is selected, it's not selected. But if I'm going to select it, this little guy here, this is a selected anchor. These guys, they call it the handle. The longer they are, the deeper the curve is going to be. See what you can do? This one is a selected one. That's why this one is the only one that's moving. This one is the only one. If I want to do the two of them, I can hold on the shift key, and now I can start doing that. You see that? You can select more than one area to do that. This is an end point of an anchor, and this is the end point right now. If I wanted to continue it, I can click, you see, I have that, and I'm gonna go and do stuff like this and close, and now it's closed. Does that make sense? So this one is just a regular curve, up and down, up and down. What happens if you need to do something like this? It doesn't really work automatically with curves, because the way the curves work is they're like a seesaw. One goes up, the other one goes down. What does it mean? Look at this one here. I want to play a little bit with this. So I'm going to say I want this guy to be up. Oops, look at this. It's a mess, right? Because these guys are connected to each other by default. I'm going to show you how to change the direction of that, and now to do straight and corner together, and then we're going to trace something with it. So I want you to go File and Open again, and open the one that says Corner Curves. Do you see that? And look what I have here. The first thing I do when I trace, I do no fill. That's the first thing I do. Why do I do no fill? Because if I have a fill, it's going to go over it all the time. I'm going to go to the pen tool. Look what I'm doing. Click one and click one. What is this one? This is a straight line. Now I can click here, and I'm going to go in and do a corner, right? I mean, like a curve, but that's half a curve. So if I'm going to my direct selection tool and click on that, look what happens. I can go in and add the handle, and this one is a round. Now I want to continue and do another straight line. So I have to go in and do one click. Why one click? Not click and drag. Because I want it to be a straight line. And then I'm going to click and drag a handle. And click and drag a handle. And click and click. So it's basically a deselect, a combination of the two of them. Does that make sense? And you're going to see that a lot when you have drawings. But look at this one, and this one is the same one, just the other way. But look at that. I want to do it like this. So I'm going to click and drag and click and drag. I know already if I click and drag and do up and down, look what happened. It won't let me do that. So while I have it up like this, there is another tool that you can go to, and I highly recommend to go to this one with a shortcut, even though if your first day in Illustrator. Hold down the Option or Alt key, and it takes you to this tool. And you go all the way to the edge of the handle and up, put it up, and put it up. And then go back and put it here, and hold on the Option or Alt and put it up. And click and drag and put it up. And basically what you did right now, you broke the link. So now if I go to the direct selection tool, I can click, and you see that? You can do up and down. They are not connected to each other. Does that make sense? If this little tail bothers you, like this one, remember when you draw, do you see this little tail here? If you don't want to see it and it bugs you, you can go to Illustrator. How many people use Macs here? If you use Mac, you go to Illustrator Preferences, and you go to Selection and Anchor Display. If you use Windows, you go to Edit and Preferences, and then when you go to Selection Display, you can turn off this little line if you don't like them. That was actually a request from everybody. They really wanted it, and then when Adobe put it there, people say it's annoying. So now they give you an option to have it on and off. This little guy is here. I went to Illustrator, Preferences, and Selection and Anchor Display, and turn off the Curvature Tool and the rubber band for the pen tool. You can turn it on and turn it off. I like to have it on. It doesn't bother me because I like to see where I'm going. Now remember we opened, I think we opened curves. Wonder if we opened the other one. I don't think we opened it yet. So go File and Open, and let's open just the pair. This one will show you how to work and change directions. Zoom into it. And look what you have here. The first thing we're going to do is going to say no fill. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to leave it, let's say, with a black stroke. And look at what you say. Everywhere that you have there, I'm going to zoom in. It tells you what to do. It tells you drag from anchor point to red dot. I'm doing it. Then it tells you drag to from the anchor point to the red dot. But once you're in the red dot, that's when you go either to this tool here or hold down the Option or Alt key and change the direction. And that's why it's good to do it with a shortcut so you don't get away from your pen tool. Click on the C anchor point and stretch it to the red. Hold down the Option or Alt and go to the yellow. Click and drag and go here. Oops. And on E, I don't need to change direction. So I'm going to go back here. Actually, I didn't change the direction here. And then I'm going to go back here and go to F. I don't need to. G, I don't need to. But you see how long the handle is? Because it's a deep curve. And look at this one. And look at this one. And then I'm going to go to J. And I'm going to go to close it. I'm going to hold down the Option or Alt key and close it. And look at that. I do have the shape of the pear. I can change some stuff. If I click with the direct selection tool, I move it a little bit. But now I can go in and select it and go back in and decide to, let's say, fill it with orange. Didn't select it. And now I have the pear. Does that make sense? So that was not bad. But I want to show you another tool that's called the Curvature Tool. Because what's the people a lot of time complaining about the pen tool that you have to start, then go to the direct selection tool and move stuff, and then go hold on the Option key and change direction. So it's like 3 tools back and forth, and it's kind of annoying. So if you need to do something with not a lot of path or object or anchor points, you kind of need to, in the end, to use the pen tool, because it does the less anchor points that you can. Because you see the image traces it crazy, right, with a lot of anchor points. There's another tool called the Curvature Tool. And this Curvature Tool works all in one, but it builds more anchor points. But it will make your life a lot easier when you start working. Do you guys still have the untitled file from before with this guy on the screen? Or maybe we'll just do a new one. I'm just going to go in and go to my pair, select the pair that I did and delete that. I don't want to have anything. And then I am going to zoom out a little bit. And before that, I want to show you how the Curvature Tool working And I'm going to show you how fast I can do this one without up and down and up and down. And then we're going to do the palette and other stuff, and you see, whoa, why didn't you show it to me before? So I'm just going to show you how it works. This is the curvature tool. And then I'm going to zoom into an empty area here so you can just see some stuff. I'm going to say no fill for now. And then I'm going to click, and look at that. You think you want to start drawing like this, but it's not a freehand drawing. That's the pencil tool. It's not like throwing and doing it. It's drawing curves with a different idea. Look what I'm doing. I'm going to click one time and click here and drag. And you see what happens? And drag. And drag. And drag and close it. Oops. A lot of time it doesn't like to close. Oops. Come on. I closed it. You see what I just did? I did a whole shape with the curvature tool. Now I want to make it look a little different. If it wasn't the curvature tool, it was, if I did a shape like this with the pen tool and I wanted to change the anchor point, I have to go to the direct selection tool and make it to corner point and round point and move it around and do the handles. I'm not moving from the curvature tool. I'm in it. I'm going to go to this point and I can move it. See that? I'm going to go to this point and move it. Now I want this point to be a corner point. I'm going to double click on it. You see that? I'm going to click on this one and move it like that. I'm going to double click here and move it here. I'm going to double click and do that. I want to add another point. I'm going to click and move it like this. I don't want it. I'm going to delete. I'm looking at this one and I'm moving it around. So now I'm just going to draw something very fast, right? I'm going to click and drag and drag and drag and drag and drag. And what did I create? Maybe a little fishy? So I don't like that him is like this, so I'm going to click here and move it a little bit and move that a little bit. But you see I added another anchor point. But I'm going to go back to my fishy and I'm going to give him like a very sharp face. And maybe the tail is also going to go look like that. And then I'm going to click here and move it like that. Does that make sense? So you see what's going on there? It's all, don't you like this one? Isn't it cool? So now let's look at our pear and try to do that, and then we're going to go and do one of our image trace with that, even maybe the drawing panel from before, and you see how fast it is. But look what I'm doing now. And by the way, if you click and drag, and then if you want to do a straight line, you hold on the, if you hold on the option key, you can do a straight line, and then it becomes, and then you can double click and create something like this. So look what I'm doing. I'm just clicking and dragging and dragging and dragging. I'm not even, I'm just marking it. You see, I'm just marking and closing. See, I marked it. Now I'm gonna go in and make it work for me. Yes, it's going to be more anchor points, but it will do it so fast. So if you're not limited, because sometimes you're going to be limited with anchor points, that's the tool for you. If you're limited, the pen tool. So look what I'm doing. I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go in and stretch it and double click here, and you see it's already have that. I'm going to make that a little bit bigger so you can see. I'm going to click here and stretch that and double click. You see I already have this one. I'm going to click in here and then go click here and move that and then go back here and then go back here and then gonna click here and move that, and look at this, how fast. Does that make sense? So the curvature tools kind of reads the curves for you, and then by double clicking on the anchor point, you can make stuff from round to curved, and you can move them and delete them. So now what we are going to do is we're going to right click on all the tabs and say close all. We don't need to save them. And now we are going to go in and create two things. We are going to trace another one of the images that we have, and maybe the panel or the palette is okay, or maybe even the little fairy that you have there. She has a lot of curves. You can go there. So we're going to do File and New. We're going to click Create. And now we're going to do File and Place. And then I'm going to go to the Drawing Tools, and I'm going to go into Image Trace, and then we can decide which one we want to go in and do that. We have the guitar, we have the fairy that we can go in and trace around, or we can actually go into, let's say, this one again because it's easier. And then we're going to go and place, and I'm going to click and place it. This time I'm going to select that, go and make it into a template, and now zoom in. And now I'm not going to worry about the pencil tool or anything. I'm going to go to my curvature tool, say no fill, and then I'm going to open a new layer and start. So I'm going to go back, and you see I'm marking some curves around, and then clicking at the end, and I have already the shape, and I'm just going to click and stretch that, and click here and stretch that, and then maybe click here a little bit and stretch that, and maybe go in here and do another one. And look at that, I already have that. I don't even need to use my shape or anything. Yes.
How did you make that so it's locked again?
Oh, locked again from before?
Or just
The template.
yeah.
I went in, I'm gonna untemplate it and I'll show you how I did it. I went here, selected the entire layer that says layer 1, and went to the flyout menu and say template. And then it made it kind of like 50% transparent. Now I'm gonna select that, and I can make that, let's say, a different stroke already, and deselect. How fast was that? And I can go in and even work with the curvature tool and do this, not even working with my, see that? I already made that, and it looks like a circle. I did it with a curvature tool. Deselect. And I can go back here to the curvature tool and go back here, and I'm going to click and click and click and click here, and maybe do that. And I did kind of like already 5, but I'm going to go in and leave this one as a straight one, and then click and start moving that. And you see here how fast I'm doing this little guy. Remember before I had problem with it? Now it looks nice and clean. And then I can zoom into these guys and then decide that I'm gonna go, so I might go and lock it right now, because I'm just gonna go back here, lock this, lock that, and I'm just gonna go and just do this one, and I'm gonna click and click and click and close, and basically gonna double click here and then go back here and double click here. And you see that how fast I did this little guy here. And now I can go back here and I have that. Oh, I think I deleted this one by mistake. So I'm just gonna do no problem. I'm gonna go in here. And in here and in here, and basically start moving it around. And look how fast I can just do just the brush. If I don't like that, I can go back here. I can don't like this one, I can delete it and just move it like that. And now I can just select it and colorize it. Can you go to the direct selection tool now and fix stuff? Yes, you can. Can I go in now to this little guy and unlock everything and select that and go back here to the regular selection tool and select that and go into the other profile that I had from before? Yes, I can. See, that's the profile. If I wanted a different kind of profile, that's the other one from before. If I want to select this one, I can go back here and do that. I can select the two of them and go into object and compound and make. And they're going to be one object now. I didn't do one object. Object and compound and make. And you see now I have one object. And I can go into these little guys and create a little thing to it. And now I can start filling it out. So I don't even need to do that. Look at this. How much nicer it is already, better than the one before. So I'm going to select that and then go in and put this in here. And I'm going to select that and make that maybe kind of a light brown. And make this one and make it as a dark brown. And I have the little brush and it looks much better. Does that make sense? So this is your curvature tool, and that gives you the ability to do a bunch of stuff with it instead of using the pen tool. Does that make sense? So you can go in. I can still go into the direct selection tool and select stuff, and look what I can do. I can change. I can make the brush look like that. I can select that, and look what I'm selecting here. I'm selecting anchor points. So after doing it, I'm zooming into it, and if it's too many anchor points, I can change some stuff. I can select on this one and say, you know what? I don't want this anchor point. So I'm going to select on the anchor point. And you see what happens? I can select on this anchor point. Look what I did to my brush. I messed it up a little bit, but look what I'm doing now. Does that make sense? So with the direct selection tool, I can go in and change stuff. Does that make sense here? I can go into this one, and again, you can also play with hierarchy. What does it mean? You can start putting stuff behind each other, either in your layers panel, or select an object and tell it to arrange. If I send it to the back, see what happened? Now this one is on top. If I click on this one, arrange and send it to the front. I can go in and select this one and go and I'm going to select this little guy here, the compound, and I might go in and fill it with the light orange. Now what if I wanted to go in now and create a little shading? That's when you can do extra path on top of it and do it with different colors. You can do extra stuff on that, and you can go into this little patches of colors. So if you don't want it to be perfect, how about just going and do stuff like that? Just like this, right? And each time I'm going to select one, I might go in and this one's going to be red and no stroke. And this one is going to be, let's say, green and no stroke. And this one is going to be maybe purple and no stroke. And this one is going to be not orange, but maybe blue and no stroke. So it's basically kind of looking more or less like the one I have. I kind of like this one more. So I'm going to select that. If I want to copy this shape, I'm holding down the Option or Alt key and bring it here and make this little guy a little bit smaller. And maybe I'm going to change that to light green. Or I can just go in and mess it up and put it here and there and there. And of course, there's a lot of other tools that you can beautify. You can do gradients to it. You can put all kind of stuff. But the way I work with the stuff is, if I'm going to look at the brush, I'm going to select the brush, the inside, see this one? I'm going to select it in the layers panel, and I'm selecting the brush. I might go into object and group. So you see I have a group and I can call the group brush. So I have a group here, and that's going to move around anywhere that you want. I'm going to go and select the panel and hold on the Shift key and select the colors, object and group. So I have two kind of stuff here, and look what happened though. Because there were different hierarchy, the brush stayed at the bottom, but I can move it around in the layers panel or in the arrangement. Does that make sense? And then if I want to select that and hold on the Shift key, I can do object and group. And from that, you can create something in Illustrator that calls a symbol. And that can be anywhere, and you can put it anywhere that you want as an icon later or anything. What does it mean, a symbol? Once I have it selected, see, it's all selected, I can go into my workspace. And in the workspace, I'm going to see if I have my symbol panel, and I don't have my symbols panel in it. So I'm going to go to Window and bring my symbols panel. This is the default symbol panel. What does it mean, symbol? At the moment, if you have that which is not a symbol, you can see here I grouped it, but basically you can go to the layer and click on each one of them and change the colors, and it will change, right? I'm going to hold on the Option key and move a copy on purpose. Once I have this copy, I'm going to go to the flyout menu. I'm going to say New Symbol. And I'm going to call that Artist Palette. There is a whole thing about dynamic symbols and not. I'm not going to worry you about it. I'm just going to make it static symbol. Look what happened. You see the plus on it? If you're looking at your layers panel right now, look at the first one has the group and everything in it. The second one, this is the symbol. I don't see all the elements in it by default. So first of all, it will save you memory. So if you have a complicated image, I always make symbols from it. Second of all, you can go in, let's say I have to duplicate it. So I'm going to hold on the Option key and just duplicate that. And make it this one smaller and this one bigger. I just made different kind of looking, right? This one is the one that's not a symbol. All of a sudden, while I'm working with it, I feel like the brush handles should be a different color for the symbol. Let's not worry about this guy. So instead of going one by one, look what I'm doing. I'm going to select only one of them. I'm going to go all the way up to my control, and I'm going to say Edit Symbol. It's going to tell you edit. I'm going to say OK. Now while I'm editing it, Now I'm gonna go in and say I want to go into this area only and make the fill yellow. And I'm gonna go back here, and then this one is a group, right? So I'm gonna double click and I'm gonna make the handle red. And I'm gonna double click and look what happened to my symbol. Everything changed. I kind of lost the other ones because the hierarchy was different, but I got a different kind of symbol. So one thing when you're doing symbols, I highly recommend, because everything you're going to do, if you wanted the other one not to be changed, maybe duplicate it like I did that. So I still have my original. I can still make a symbol from that too. I can also double click on that and select just this, double click on that and select that and double click, and you see I have that all the way here on the symbol. I can double click on this again and select, and I can actually go into the layer, and then I'm gonna go in and see I have these guys, so I'm gonna select just the colors and maybe make them green, and look at that. Does that make sense? Because when you're going to change the symbol, you also see it in the layer. So do you see the difference between that and the other thing? This one is a regular object, and you can continue working with it the way you want, but if you have a lot of stuff that you change, let's say a lot of you guys working maybe in marketing and communication, maybe you need to do like infographics about something, and you have few things that are repeating, and all of a sudden you say, whoa, the head of the person has to be a little more pointed. So if that was symbol, you can do one change only and it's all gonna change. If you don't want this one of them to change, let's say I want this one to stay as is, and this one, or like all of them to stay as is, but this one I want to change completely but not change these guys. I can go in and say break link. And when you break the link, you're basically making it to non-symbol, and can go back, and everything that I'm going to go and do here, it's just going to do it to this one. Does that make sense? So, and the sample that I gave you with the infographics, because you may have the same people and all of a sudden one has to change, so break the link and do that. Or what if you needed to do a signs to maps and everything like this, and all the signs looks the same, make them into a symbol, even put the type in there, but then break the link and change the type, they're all going to look the same. Does that make sense? They're going to be the same type and the same typeface and everything like it. Does that make sense? I know it's a lot, especially for people who never used Illustrator, but I'm just trying to show you the kind of like the power of the drawing tools, not even the brushes, just the pen tool and the other one. Just now we're just going to do another one with, let's do file new, and then let's go in and create a new one and do another kind of image trace. Do file and place. And this time, let's click on the snowboard, this guy, you see that? Hold down the Command or Control key and click on the green leaf, because we're going to look at the two of them. I don't even need to link them. I'm going to click place. And when you place in Illustrator more than one file, if you go to the arrow key, you can see. So you can place 6 files, 8 files, whatever. So I'm going to go in and put this guy here, and then the leaf over here for later. This one is line art. So you're going to say, I can go to the Curvature Tool and do that, but component by component. But if I don't need to do it component by component, this is a very good candidate for line art tracing. So while I have it here, I'm going to go back to image trace, and look at that, it's already traced it for me. Not a good trace, so I'm going to go to the tracing panel, and I am going to go to the preset, and I'm going to say sketch art. And then I'm going to play a little bit with the threshold. And now you have a choice. Do you want to go in and ignore white so it's going to make it transparent all over? Or you don't want to go and ignore white, so it is going to take it with the background. If you don't need to paint it, it's all good. But if you did the background and you need to go and paint it, you need to go and expand it. Now while I have it here, I'm going to go to View and Show Transparency Grid, and look at that. Not good, right? Because I told it do not ignore the white. So I'm going to the Direct Selection tool and just selecting the white frame and deleting, and selecting this one and deleting, and you see now I have just the white frame there, and that's it. And now I can go in and do some stuff. So it's going to be an option for you. How do you want to do line art and how do you want to trace it? Does that make sense? Again, now I can go into the Direct Selection tool and put a color here and a color here and just go in and start playing with it. Does that make sense? The other thing, and of course I can make him into a symbol and it's all good. But I'm going to go to this guy now. This one I want to trace him with colors. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to say 16 colors. And I didn't say ignore white, but now if I say ignore white, it is good because I still have the leaf over there, but I don't have the background. And now I can do different kind of things with it. So let's say you wanted to do something really artistic with this one now. And purposely I didn't do it with a lot of colors. In order for me to change the colors, I'm gonna have to expand. Always you have to expand. Now I can go into my swatch panel. I have the swatch panel over here too. I don't need to trace it anymore. And I can go to my Lasso tool. The Lasso tool selects with circling around. So look what I'm doing. I'm just circling around this area. And then click on this color. And then select that and click on that. And then select this one and click on that. And select that. So you see I'm able to create kind of a nice looking artistic colorizing, almost like different kind of colors, or maybe I'm gonna do just this one. And you see what I'm trying to do? I can go even to a simpler area here and do this one blue. So look what happens now. I can just play with the stuff and all of a sudden it looks like a different kind of drawing. So you can make kind of like grungy looking leaves and all kind of stuff, because look at that. It's still vector, but look how cool is this one here. And it's still vector here, so I can go back here and maybe do a simple piece over here and then do that and maybe do a simple here. This one is the whole thing there. So depending how we traced it. And this one, see, still leaves me that. And I'm gonna go, and this one leaves this whole area here, but maybe I'm gonna go and just click on that. And this one did this, just depending. The more colors you have, the more anchor point you're gonna have to work with, and you can go in and start colorizing the whole area that you have and using all kind of stuff like that. So I use that. Also you can pull it out, cut it and everything, and nobody's gonna know that you are copying their leaf. So if somebody is telling you to do something, you can take a reference file, and with the drawing tools you can edit, select and make it into your own. Does that make sense? In the files that I gave you, if you're looking into the areas here, I have a sketch template that you can put all the stuff there, but in the handout I do have stuff about, see, this is the toolbox. This one is how to work with layers, how to go in and extra stuff and shapes and everything. And this one is working with the selection tool and the pen tool, and even the curvature tool is there. So you can see kind of explanation how to work with it and how to play, and some extra stuff about the trace. And then if you have the files, you can just practice.